Let's Talk JMMA with Charlie Jewett from sogo-kaku.com. This is a podcast about the deep end of the Japanese combat sports scene. I'm your host, Shu Hirata from On the Road Management. Now, let's begin. Hey, good evening, Charlie.
Good morning, Shu. How's it doing over there?
Good. I'm back from 3 weeks in Atlanta. Actually, technically went back and forth every weekend for Professional Fighters League.
That sounds pretty hot.
Well, Atlanta, it's a nice town. It's okay, but not like all 3 weeks, right? You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so let's talk about this TAKERU kickboxing fight in Paris, which I think something I actually haven't had a chance to watch yet. So tell us about this.
Yeah, so I was looking into it. At first, I noticed there was like a lot of commotion going on after the event because it seemed like the fights were going over.
Meaning like over time?
Over time. Okay. Especially the Taiju fight, people were saying it went like a minute long and everything. And it was not. Well, I looked into it. So what happened was the French Federation is in charge of bringing all the equipment to the event.
Okay.
And the bell was stuck in traffic.
Yes.
And because of the ABEMA broadcasting schedule, they couldn't wait for the bell. So they held an event without a bell to notify people that the fights had ended.
So no one had the horn, none of that?
None of that. And the production staff also wasn't stopping the clock on the TV when the referee was stopping the fight. And so it was like reading like 0 seconds left, but it was still going on for like a minute more, which just led to like people being even more confused.
I mean, this is the promoter who has done many kickboxing shows in the past, right?
Right. So the promoter's saying it's all on the commission. Because the promoter has nothing to do with the bell. It was the commission. They handle the bell. They handle all the equipment like that. And Bob Blue Jack saying there was someone in the crowd had a horn.
Well, if the commission, this is really a little bit puzzling for me because if this is North American commission, if they did show up late 30 minutes or whatever, they will delay the show for 30 minutes. They will not be allowed to go on without a bell, without a whatever.
Yes, that's how
it's supposed to be.
I feel like the federation should just put their foot down and said, well, ABEMA is going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to air it 30 minutes later or however long it takes to get the bell. But
it says some fans try to offer them a gong on their phones, but they decline. Of course, on the phone, you can't do that. Yeah. I mean, it had to be some other way to do it. I mean, I see this guy's point. I mean, there had to be another alternative. But anyway, so how long
what happened was
in traffic?
I don't think it ever showed up.
That's not traffic issue then.
Because they said people were saying the TAKERU fight went like 30 seconds long. They're saying the Taiju fight went like a minute long. So yeah.
That's terrible.
Really bad. Plus, it looks even worse because I feel bad for ABEMA too, because it's like it's like their first kind of big international TAKERU kickboxing event. And it was an expensive pay-per-view. And if you bought it, you just watched this big shit show where the local commission messed everything up.
It's really weird though. So what were the excuse for the person for not showing up, the bail person? Or whatever happens to him? Like they don't really get into that details, huh?
I just read an article on Beyond Kick where they interviewed the referee that was in charge.
Right.
And the only answer they got was that it was stuck in traffic.
It says arrived for TAKERU, so I guess Bell made it for TAKERU fight.
Yeah, and Bob Blue Jack's letting us know that fight didn't go long. That was just the production crew not stopping the clock.
I see.
When the ref stopped it, so that so people watching it were confused, but not people there in attendance. Has it ever happened to you? Have you ever been to an MMA show where like something like that has happened before?
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this. I'm gonna say a big YES, yes, to a 50,000 stadium shows, which is called Inoki Bombaye in Kobe Stadium back in December 31st of 2000, whatever. And nobody was supposed to bring a bell. So they didn't have a bell. So there was a big chaos. It was Noboru Asahi trying to call everybody, find the bell, and all kinds of stuff. So when okay, this is not a commission; it's a show run by a people who has done the show, the fight show. So I've seen that happen before.
Well, at least Japan, the crowd's kind of quiet. Maybe someone could just make a loud noise or
Right,
something.
yeah.
But
So yeah, I was just gonna say that this has happened before in Japan.
oh, man. It's just kind of funny that this is all because most people in Japan are like never going to watch this French promotion again.
Well, again, but that's okay though.
Yeah.
I think from Abema's and Japanese fans' point of view, fight fans' point of view, who cares about that promotion? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, anything bad to this promotion because it's all commission's fault. Sounds like, but I mean, it's all about Takeru and the Japanese fighters, and it really is all about Takeru, right? This is a big stepping stone to the big fight in one championship debut, and I suspect it'll be a Japan show, right? Probably so.
Yeah, they're already building up the Rotatong fight, so I mean that should be the one that's happening, and they'd be. I feel like it'd almost be stupid not to put that on a Japan show.
Right,
exactly. Like wasted on any other card. Yeah.
Right. So I wonder what kind of big venue they have reserved because I actually don't know.
Well, because I saw Rotatong saying to Takeru like first get a couple wins and one championship. But if I'm one championship, I don't even risk it. I make sure this fight happens and I do it now.
Mm-hmm. It only makes sense, and
yeah.
And Takeru, why would let him fight against nobody, right? At this point, I'm pretty sure they're paying top dollars. Put him against the guy,
Put it in Japan. I mean, if they were going to do that show, do you think they could fill like the Super Arena or something like that?
Saitam Super Arena? I mean, they could try. I mean, you could make that place as small as maybe 12, 13,000 capacity, right? To make it even down to 8 if they really have to. So it does make sense to do it there, actually. Because it gives you more flexibility than the Ryogo Arena, Kokugikan,
Interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. When I went to like,
when
I would go to like some of the Tenshin fights that weren't in RIZIN, they were never at like the biggest arenas. I mean, outside of the Takeru fight, they were always kind of like in the medium-sized arenas. So.
Well, what about a new place like Ariake Arena? I actually have never been to that arena. I mean, is it nice?
It's very nice. Yeah, I liked it.
Right. So, I mean, there are a couple more other new venues it's opening up in, right? In Tokyo.
Plus, they have all the new Olympic stuff they built for the Olympics. So they have a lot of options.
Well, they should have other choices. I mean, I know generally it's not that easy for a fight promoter to rent a regular so-called gymnasium,
right,
for various reasons. But but yeah, well, I mean, I think obviously it's already announced that he's signed with one championship. So this was all about big debut in one. So we'll see. And is there any announcement about the pay-per-view sales, all kinds of stuff, or none of that?
No, I was kind of curious to see how that would go because it was kind of interesting. They had a tiered level of pay-per-view where if you like bought the most expensive one, you got like items in return. You got like a T-shirt and stuff. So, but it seemed like they're just like going after Takeru's fans for all they could. But Bablu Jack has an interesting question. He wants to know. He says that the Japanese fans actually don't seem to care that much about the time issue, and he wants to know if that surprises you or not.
Time issues meaning like that? Oh, you mean that missing the belt, whatever? I think it's just that nobody made a big issue about it. I mean, was it like is there any Japanese commentary to begin with?
Well, I didn't watch it on BMS, so I wouldn't know. But there has to have been because there has to have been Japanese commentary because it was on Abema.
Right, and probably nobody really made a big issue about it,
Yeah, they probably just kind of ignored it.
Right,
because like Japanese commentators are way more like toe the line, don't rock the boat.
Right, and I mean, if somebody made a case about it, I'm pretty sure in this age, somebody would write about it on some, media or some internet media, whatever. So, and nobody wrote about it, right? So,
well, I mean, to be honest, the only real fight that people cared about was probably the TAKERU fight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, Taiju and Taiga have fans, but the one that everyone cared about is TAKERU, and
Well,
he won.
they had the usual ABEMA Japanese commentary crew. Masato was one of them, which makes sense, right? But, yeah, English commentaries were definitely making issues though, but nobody did. So, I mean,
I think
in general, this is a big pay-per-view by ABEMA, so like making big issue about the little things that didn't really cause any problem to the results would be kind of bad thing to the ABEMA too. So I think it's a Japanese thing, yeah.
Well, I just
But
think
in
that all
sports,
the
you
fans care
give a
about.
issue about it though,
I think it'd be one thing if TAKERU lost, but because he won with a brutal head kick knockout, nobody really cares.
Exactly. That highlight, footage.
Yeah.
That's what they care about. But somebody should make an issue though. This is sports. If this happened and if this is allowed in the other shows, and the concept of fighters' safety, it's really not.
Yeah.
Should not be allowed, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's too bad. But I guess it's a successful Takeru.
Yeah.
And ABEMA, I think, because that's going to be
they got what they paid for. I mean, I think he broke his opponent's collarbone or something, but I mean, he got an absolutely brutal high kick knockout. They're going to be playing that on highlight reels and replaying that fight as they get ready to show the Rotatong pay-per-view. So yeah, I think they're got their money's worth.
That's good. So that's success because in a way for ABEMA they need that because UFC went to you next, and now let's talk about this RIZIN show in Hokkaido. Now instead of be on in Japan, this was on YouTube for free, right?
Yes, it was. It was on YouTube for free, and outside of Japan, it was on Fight TV. I think for it depended on what country you were in, but roughly like $20.
And I heard that I guess in terms of RIZIN live viewing, it scored like #1 in the world viewership in terms of that day.
Oh, it was off. I mean, I think someone said on the YouTube that it was like going well over 200,000 people watching it live.
I could see that, right?
And I mean, I had a feeling this card would deliver on paper. I was always really high on this card, just because it didn't have the big names that you would expect, but the matchups were kind of crazy matchups of people that have the potential for like chaos and violence. And it showed like almost every fight was a brutal finish of some kind. I think,
except my client Tetsuya Seki fight.
But that was still a good fight, though. That was still a really good fight. I mean, that's not his fault. Endo is just like a crazy man that never went down in that fight.
Yeah, I know, but I'm telling you right now, me and him, Yasuda, everybody talked about it. This is a fight he needed to finish.
But he had especially near the end when he was like landing all those uppercuts and knees. He clearly hurt
He got that knockdown too, right? I mean, still, it was not the finish,
I think somebody said if you just put the fights on and like removed all of the puff and like the decoration, the entire event lasted less than an hour and a half.
Really?
Just because there's so many first round finishes on this event.
I can see that, right? I mean, again, that kind of reminds me of a very first Pancras show.
Oh yeah.
The total number of the total time for the fight was like 20 something minutes or something like that,
Or like what was it, the very first UFC on Fox?
Yeah, exactly.
First round knockout.
Exactly. So
no, but I mean the show was awesome. It was perfect for RIZIN because I thought it was a smart idea to distribute it for free on YouTube. And I mean 200,000 people were watching it live. I think they made a mistake in taking it down. They should have left it up.
They took it down before the final fight or main event or whatever.
I think they just like made it a live viewing, but then they like kind of removed it.
So you can't watch it again, basically.
Yeah, I thought they might put those fights up while the buzz is still hot because some of those finishes were absolutely brutal. I mean, Chihiro Suzuki's brother knocked out Umeno with a crazy flying knee. Seguro knee. I mean, the guy's taken out on a stretcher, bleeding out of the mouth. I can't even remember all of them. The finishes were so brutal. I did laugh though because it was kind of funny because you could tell that RIZIN kind of called Pancrase deep in Shuto, and they were like, "Give us your Hokkaido fighters. We want to sell as many tickets to these Hokkaido people as possible." And whenever the Hokkaido fighter lost, the crowd was just so noticeably quiet and didn't even like cheer or anything. Like when the victor would speak on the microphone.
Let's talk about this Hokkaido thing. Now, did you hear about the one kickboxer who came out after this fight that he says that his gym and coach, who has not worked with him for a month, accepted this fight without letting him know? So he was forced to cut weight,
No, I didn't hear this.
Missed weight, and fought. And this is just a real sad story. I mean, in America or any other places, this would never happen.
No, I mean, it's kind of a similar story. I don't know about this instance, but I remember when I was interviewing Rena for about kind of like her background, she said when she made her first MMA fight in RIZIN, she didn't even know about it. She was just like invited to a press conference, and it was like, by the way, you're making your MMA debut in RIZIN. Right. It was like she was the last person to know about it. So it seems like it's kind of normal in Japanese combat sports, but still sad.
That's very bad, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about, it's about this boy, Hoshikubo. Shoyuki Hoshikubo. He's a kickboxing fighter who fought in the opening fight. And according to him, he hasn't worked out, and he was working regular job. So never trained anything, and all of a sudden, his old coach from the gym says, "Hey, you got the fight offer. This is the weight class. This is, contract weight." And he says, "No, I can't never cut down to that weight. I haven't been training anyway, so no." But next thing I know, his fights were announced. So he was forced to cut his weight, which he ended up missing and apologizing in the public.
Wasn't the fight Oh yeah, the fight went the distance, but it was like a no contest.
Yes.
This was that's such a weird thing, because I feel like in Japan there's the whole thing where like if your coach does it, you'll just like go through with it because that's the way it is. But in the US, the fighter just tell him to fuck off.
Right. Then it's really funny because then another fighter came out and says like, "Well, this coach, when I wanted to switch gym or quit gym, he forced me to have a long talk in the car alone, in his car with him for over an hour. At the end of the conversation, he said, I can make few calls and you could never get fight in this industry ever again." There's always a threat at the end.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Oh man, that sounds rough.
It is rough. Now, same from Hokkaido. There's a fighter named Mr. Yamato Nishikawa who fought in PFL.
Yes.
Right? And just lost. And his family father tells me all kinds of stories that he asked me a lot of questions. Like, there's so many misinformation going on, in that part of the world, Japanese fight world. So, I mean, I feel like, when you remote away from Tokyo, it's another step far away from like a real world standard that people doesn't realize.
I think it happens a lot just in the Japanese fight scene in general, just because you'll talk to fighters and sometimes they complain, "Oh, my coach, he talks to the promoter and they never talk to me, and I'm like the last person to find out."
Always, yeah, I hear.
And then you find out that or you find out like the opposite, where it's like, "Oh, my coach hears from the promoters but never responds to them. So I lose all these opportunities that I didn't know that I was getting because the coach like never brought to me to ask about it." So it's just very strange.
Let's stop here because I'm stopping this because I found this on here. Somebody says there's also a controversy in Knockout with Musashi being pulled out of the title fight due to change in gym. Now, I'm going to have to ask you address this issue. Knockout is a promotion promoted by Mr. Yamaguchi in this photo right there on the left, right? And he also manages Chihiro Suzuki, right? Big, clear conflict of interest. Big, huge. You remember Suzuki came out public saying that he's not getting paid enough. And there's reason for it. Because if he gets paid a lot of money in RIZIN, this guy will be forced to pay him high money to Suzuki when he fights for knockout.
Does he also have anything to do with Panchan? Is he like?
I'm not gonna get into that, but I'm telling this the problem about the Japanese, especially sometimes kickboxing promotions, Jim is also a promoter and also a manager for fighter. And
I also think it's weird.
Yeah,
I think it's weird when the promoter is also the manager.
Exactly, right. It makes zero sense. And so, like, I think to start, the Japanese fighters must have to realize, educate themselves about a conflict of interest in the business world. And they're in the position where they just cannot make a best decision for fighters because that will end up hurting their promotion.
Well, it's a complete conflict of interest. It's like
it is
if you're managing the fighter and representing the promotion.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a huge conflict of interest. So again, it's the same way. So if promoter doesn't like you changing gym, I'm gonna give you a title shot. So that's just really not a organized competition right there, right?
Yeah.
Basically, playing and this guy's sandlocked. If you don't like it, you get out, basically, right? But if you get out, they make a big issue about it. So it's something had to change over there. Otherwise, fighters will never be happy, which results in lack of increase in competitors populations, and lack of quality
fight. It's
fights.
Especially true in kickboxing when there's less major kick promotions in Japan.
Exactly. So it's not a big money they're talking about here. So it's not like a huge money at the stake, So let's really think big, right? Because if you're a coach, I think the best way is to make your fighter strong, win fights, and earn money. I mean, it's just really that's the concept of sports. And I'm not using fighter or taking advantage of fighter to make money. That's a different, concept. Yeah.
But based off some of the stories you've told, I feel like that might be the approach some of these promoters.
Yeah, I know. It's sad, but it really shouldn't be. So, but anyway, so let's talk more positive, something positive, which is Super Rising.
Oh wait, just back to the Rising 43. Did you see the news about the bear sighting?
Oh, I heard. Yes, it's
but there was like they had to like double security outside the venue because the stadium is like in a park. And there were bears seen like in the park, like right by the stadium. So they had to like double the police presence in the area to be able to hold the event. Welcome to Hokkaido.
I know it's Hokkaido. I guess that I've heard that sometimes they cross the streets and stuff, right? I mean,
I think like a month ago, some fishermen got eaten by a bear up there.
Right, it's a northern big island, which is this vast nature in that part of the country, and lots of Kurosawa's film are shot in Hokkaido.
But I saw the ticket sales; it's like 8,500 people. So I mean, it seems like it was a pretty successful event.
It's a big capacity, right? Isn't it like 12,000 people max or something like that?
I heard 12,000 max. Yeah.
So that's good.
Let's talk about go back up there in the future.
Yeah, before we get into Super Rising, I want to talk about this steroid testing in JMMA.
That seems so weird to me.
For some reason, Philip Kimura, a lot of fans pointed out that he looks like he jacked up, right? So
first off,
Kimura came out publicly for the first time, publicly notified to the fans that Rising has been doing the drug testing, and he will specifically to do that for Kimura. Now, what's the reaction to that?
Well, it's kind of weird because, I mean, he said what they sent a sample to the U.S. to be tested, and it'll take like a month.
They use this lab, which I know actually it's a very legit lab, where I recommended by New Jersey Athletic Commission. So, and it does take 3 to 4 weeks.
But it's just why are they? I don't understand why they're doing that because he said that they've been doing it. They just never made the results public before.
Exactly. They have been doing that. I think they picked like 3, 4, 5, whatever, randomly after the fight.
It just seems strange to me because it kind of gets to that strange like one championship area where if the promoter doesn't have a commission and is independently testing the fighters and not releasing the results, then it just kind of is like, oh, well, then are they like ignoring positive tests or what are they doing?
Exactly. Actually, I agree with you that they should make results public because they are actually a severe punishment on this.
Right.
Actually, it's all depends on the fighters, but some it's all written on a contract, and I've seen a contract saying that if it comes out positive, 100% of your purse will be confiscated, which is
because there's
severe penalty compared to what we used to hear.
Weren't there rumors in the past about, I won't say names, but rising fighters that had failed tests because there's kind of like behind the scenes punishments that happened, but just seems kind of weird to me that you're only releasing one specific fighter's results.
Did they announce that result? No.
No, they said that they're going to release Kimura's results
when
it comes out in a month. Exactly. And I'm like, why not release all of them? Like, why are we just picking one person? It seems strange. I mean,
I think this is what it is, Charlie. The whole concept, I think, at least for Mr. Sakakibara, this is a sport, but still, it's not a top to bottom strict professional competition. So steroid testing is part of his entertainment tools.
I think it all seems just like showmanship because, I mean, Instant Inoue has been very public in saying that the steroid testing and Pride was just an intelligence test. And I mean, it's kind of funny that Sakakibara is like up there shaking hands with Overeem in the ring, and then the very same event talking about steroid testing. So,
well, yeah, but here's the bottom line.
I also don't. Do the Japanese fans care? I don't think Japanese fans care about steroid testing.
I would say there's a small circle of fans who cares deeply, passionately. And I actually care, for safety fighters' point of view. And if you allow, then it's just gonna go more. It's when you come to the category of performance enhancing drugs, it could go miles, right? It will end up being some sort of injuries or shortening fighters' career. So, or end up being in a rehab or whatever, right? So,
I mean, but just like it feels like RIZIN definitely has like different types of fights. They have like serious fights that are like actual MMA fights. But there's also like more entertainment focused ones. And I feel like Kimura definitely falls more into that. I mean, everybody knew why he was brought to this event. It was to brutally knock out Daryl Lukoku.
Right, I have no idea. But again, it's all about the finish, right? Because they always value how many finishes you had on this show and that show. That's
I think it's just. I think you hit the nail. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. This is just like part of the entertainment for Sakakibara. It's kind of part of the whole like spectacle of the event.
Exactly. And let me tell you what, I'm gonna get more into it since you said that some guys are brought in to just get knocked out completely, right? I mean, in that RIZIN 43 show, there was a lopsided matchups, obviously.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, some kids came from breaking down. Nishi, Tani, whatever that boy.
He got murdered in like 40 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell you this right now that RIZIN actually wants to offer him to fight Ren Hiramoto. I'm like, what?
Take it, Ren. It'd be the easiest knockout of your entire career.
Yeah, but that actually, that's just not good because that's actually almost crossing the borderline on being dangerous. Because you're really matching a real seasoned, trained, a kickboxer in the open finger gloves against a guy who really never really trained. I would not categorize him as a real training under the real professional environment.
I still think but see, that match especially, I think RIZIN wants these breaking down fighters to win. Because that guy came up, and because he was on the card, Mikuru flew up to the event. They had the camera on him the whole time. He came up in the ring. No. And I think that they thought by putting him in the ring with a 38-year-old past his prime kickboxer that he might win. And that's not what happened.
I think, Charlie, you live in Japan, so you realize this. But for those who in America or anywhere else who may not know this, that Japan is a peculiar market. The consumers are peculiar in a sense that in terms of entertainment or sometimes sports or mixed entertainment, they prefer unfinished product. They prefer watching amateur grows into professional. Like idol singers all like that. They're far from being professional. So they like to support, right? They like to cheer through to make it to the top and see if they make it into the professional. Like, look at their music industry. Of course, there are a lot of musicians that are totally professional, but half of it is like that, idol singers.
Yeah.
So if you're totally professional, like American musician, they're pro, right? It's nothing for you to worry about. You sit down and watch their presentation, basically. But
Right.
it's not like that. So the breaking down same way, I think. Lots of the fans wants to watch him try to grow into the professional fighter.
Well, it's this. I mean, it's the same thing what you're describing. It's like the same with the whole Kota Miura thing. It's like
Exactly.
people
Right.
just want to see him take on the challenge of
Exactly.
being an
At
MMA
least
fighter.
because he's a son of a very, very famous soccer player.
True, but in that way,
Yeah.
though, he's also kind of like an idol fighter almost,
True.
because he has a bunch of female fans. They all think he's cute.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. You're right on the money. It's basically there's a competition division and entertainment division in RIZIN.
Oh,
There's
100%.
an invisible line right there.
Yushi is definitely on the entertainment side of things. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with there being entertainment fights. They're fun. They kind of help keep the shows interesting.
Right. So
But
in that
yeah,
concept and steroid testing, so how that work, right? I mean, but this is the bottom line. I feel today's steroid testing, right? I mean, today's performance enhanced drug, it's very advanced in the sense if you know if you're going to get tested on that specific day, there's a way to get out of it. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So
isn't I mean you see like the documentary on Netflix, Icarus, and then you hear about like the baseball players just do microdosing. It seems like if you know what you're doing, you're not going to be caught.
exactly. So the only way to do it is like the WADA, USADA, or UFC or Olympic do. You know, they got to put you on monitor 24 hours a day, 365 days.
Yeah, well, let's say I did see your interview. I saw Mizuki's interview with Drake Riggs, where USADA came in
Yeah,
during the interview.
exactly right. So they're very strict. They can come in at your work too, and if you have to work, they'll stand there and watch you till you take a break. They'll follow you everywhere you go to make sure from that moment on they cannot be out of their sight.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean that's the only way to do it. You know, otherwise, like you see on the PFL, it's despicable in a way that a bunch of guys got tested positive, right?
Yeah. Plus, do you think? I mean, Sakakibara is such a promoter that I think if he mentioned steroid testing, he knows that there's some articles are going to be written about that. It's going to get more attention to the event. I think he's a smart guy. I think he knows why he said it.
Right. That
I think he also knows that nobody will care in a month what happened.
It's entertainment tools. It's another topic to provide to the fans and to get those clicks and the page views, and, you know, whatever. You know, so yeah, but again, it costs a lot of money to do what Olympics or UFC is doing. So you can't ask Sakakibara to spend like $10 million and do the same thing for 165 days a year. So, you know, I guess and also there's no athletic commissions in Japan, so they have to figure it out on their own. They have to provide, resources to do
I don't
that
think
too.
anyone's asking for them to do like an Osato style system because that would just be unreasonable. They'd go broke just trying to administer that program.
Yeah, exactly. And the bottom line is like Bellator can't do it. You know, PFL is not doing that until the playoffs now. You know, so it has to be a limited time. But you know, I guess it just costs a lot of money. You know. Yeah. So then I want to get to the next point, which is the Taira fight got canceled because the opponent weighing 4 pounds over, whatever.
Dude, I saw some pictures of Taira. He's like wrapped like a burrito
Yeah,
on the floor. Yeah. Like he suffered through that. It's kind of frustrating to see him suffer through that
know,
weight cut.
Very common way for weight cuts. You know, like a lot of people are actually. It's hard. You know, I'm not taking anything away from it, but there's a specific method to do it. So it's not they're not doing that for hours. Most of the time you do it a couple hours the night before and maybe 2-3 hours. And if it doesn't work, you do more. That's when you get into the suffering stage. And yeah, it's less, a couple pounds are tough. It's really tough, but more of a disciplined athletes has more muscle and less fat, basically, right? And the muscle contains a lot of water, makes your water cut a little bit easier than the others. So, I mean, yeah, the professional can make it, you know? And so, in that sense, his opponent wasn't professional. Maybe he was intentional, I don't know, but, 4 pounds over is pretty big. And I was and I was very impressed that fighter, Taira decided to not fight. Because in this case, I would say 99.99999% of a Japanese fighter would say yes. Oh, I'll fight.
No, I 100% respect the decision to not take this fight. Why give your opponent a four? I mean, who knows what the opponent's going to weigh in at if they miss weight by 4 pounds?
Exactly. But also, the opponent robbed Taira's opportunity to win bonus. So I sincerely hope, his management try to get that win bonus too. Sometimes that happens, but most of the time it doesn't. And he'll probably went home with maybe plus 20% or 30% of the other guy's purse, whatever that is. But still, he got robbed of the opportunity to do a win bonus, opportunity to get another performance bonus. Yeah. So potentially, right? He must have like 50, 60, 70,000, whatever that is. So I think it's very, unprofessional.
It was also just a general waste of time. I mean,
it is.
Fighters, their prime window is so small. Like any canceled fight like this, it's just a giant waste of time.
Exactly. Now, this is when I want to get into it. The most of the time, when Japanese fighter, when they make weight and when they find out the opponent didn't make a weight, and when they say, "All right, do you want to cancel this fight?" The very first time, most of the time, Japanese fighter asks, "Oh, so what's my penalty?" So they feel like I have a penalty, even though I made a weight. They feel it's common in Japan. And that penalty is maybe the tickets he sold, whatever that is, but it's very weird. So in Japan, although they say that, oh, we're doing unified rules and blah, 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 when it comes to penalties, it's never publicly announced. It's always something disgusting happens behind the door.
You mentioned in the past that, like, if a fighter can't fight, they're kind of responsible for the tickets they sold themselves.
I've heard that. Yes, that happened before.
So what happens if your opponent misses weight and the fight is canceled?
I've seen a contract where, let's say, the fight gets canceled, and if your opponent misses weight, that fighter who missed the weight would have to buy that tickets too, the opponent's ticket.
So, like, what do you do if you're like, I mean, this is an extreme example, but if like your opponent is like Koji, who sold like 5,000 tickets, there's no way you're ever going to pay that back.
You're going to be working in some tuna fisherman's ship for the next couple of years or something like that. Really, it really comes, talk about negotiating, paying over the next 10 years or whatever that is. I don't know. But that's really stupid, right? So it's really, really stupid. So, if you have a right management, you look through the contract and you just basically cross that line.
Well, I won't mention names, but I have noticed, I do know some fighters, back to your point, who after they missed weight were kind of like secretly punished by the promotion, and that they weren't allowed to fight for like a year, or they were made to do like some kind of demeaning
something like that. Yeah, and it, most of the time is this, which is really, again, another point of the Japanese MMA, which I really dislike, is that most of the time those are actually clear written in the contract.
Yeah.
Stupid rules like $100 per 0.00 gram you missed kind of stuff. It's really, really stupid. But most of the time, fighters or coaches just didn't read them.
It also, can you? I have to think that one of the stupidest missed weight penalties involves your client Mizuki.
Oh, I know.
Because when she fought Emi Tomimatsu, and then defeated Emi Tomimatsu with an armbar. When I was writing the results for that, it was like Mizuki taps Tomimatsu with armbar, Tomimatsu crowned new champion. It was just like, that's like the most humiliating championship ever.
Here's the same thing as what happened to Kleber, Koike, and Suzuki too, right? He got stripped of the title, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you agree to fight, that result stays. That's the sport. I mean, it's one thing I don't know about this Japanese MMA that, if you win, it's no contest. You know what I mean?
Whenever it happens, I've seen it happen a lot now.
A lot. It's very common.
I've seen it happen many times, but every time it happens in a high-profile fight like that, it raises so much international criticism.
Exactly.
Everyone's just like, why is this fight even happening? Like, why would they agree to this?
And I'm telling you this, Charlie, I'm going to tell you this on the record. Every time I have this discussion with matchmaker or promoters in Japan, that why can't you just change that? Like what everybody else does. Just say this is unified rules. This is how it works. If you agree to the catch rate, you fight. If you don't agree, you go home with the guarantee money. That's it, show money. You make it simple. But if you step into the cage, it's a competition. So you have to crown the winner, period. Because you agree to fight at that weight class. Because you didn't force that fighter to agree, to fight in that weight class. But the problem is the Japanese has this a little force all the time. They will always corner a fighter to the point where they just cannot say no. So it's really that rule is based on the fact that they will force fighter to get into the ring or the cage. That's why that rule is very disgusting to me. If the fighter should have just right to say no. Who cares if it's a main event or not? And the promoter has to deal with it because that's the risk they have to take to run the show. You know what I mean? If they don't like that, they should clearly verbalize it in the contract that they have to take fight, even though the guy's 5 pounds over, but you can take 100% of their purses away or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be verbalized. It's just never. That's why it's always a very ugly negotiation behind the stage.
The no contest thing is just like, give the guy a yellow card, take a point away, do something, anything.
Right, something like that. Yeah.
But make the result, if it's a finish, count. Because
exactly right. It's a sport. It's ridiculous. It's in pro wrestling.
Because it becomes like this weird half exhibition match,
exactly,
half real. Right. It's also why Japanese MMA fighters have all these crazy records with 5 no contests.
My point is this: that I always tell matchmakers and promoters, why can't you just change it as in everybody else? Just say it's unified rules. Just do it as is. But everybody tells me the same thing. The Japanese audience would never accept that. They're like, do you have any statistic results? Did you do any research? It's like, no. But we know. I know the Japanese will not accept that. Japanese cannot accept that. Japanese will not understand that. Japanese always like to use that phrase. Japanese will not do it, or Japanese don't understand that. Telling you, there are a lot of Japanese people. Everybody has different kind of thinking, as you can see, right? Like the guy who won the election and decided not to even show up at the parliament and end up getting arrested. He's Japanese too. So I don't.
It was also remember Osaka? How confusing it was when they canceled the fight for missed weight, but they still had the fighters come out in their fight wear. And people were like, is this fight happening? I thought this was canceled. And then they came out to the ring and apologized to the crowd in their fight gear.
Charlie, I have to really talk about this publicly then. And I would have to apologize to Roxanne for making her do that. But that happened in Sengoku Show.
Oh, really? Between
Roxanne Modafferi and Hitomi Akano. Roxanne got sick, food poison. Doctor said there's no she can fight. So fight's canceled, right? There's nothing you can do. But the promoter was so upset. I heard, I'm not naming names, one of the promoter yelling on the intercom to the staff who was with us saying, I don't care how she is, just drag her ass out of the ring. Like that kind of stuff. They just really So I told him no. That's going to happen. So I really had to negotiate to the point that at least she'll make a walkout. We'll step into the ring.
That's even worse, though.
It's worse. What's the point, right? But from their point of view, it's they feel like they feel obligated to show a talent into the stage so the fans can at least get a glimpse of that fighter because they're talents.
You remember the super weird Gabby Garcia apology too, where they marched her out and had her apologize? I mean, it's just
exactly. So it's like a crucifix.
Nobody wants to see that,
right?
It just seems humiliating for the fighter. Let them stay backstage.
Exactly, but again, let's say, for example, you're a Japanese entertainment manager who has the actress. The husband got caught cheating. What this manager does is you make sure that you drag her husband out of public humiliation. You even hire these harsh questioning journalists, surround them and smash them, just beat them up. So to the point the Japanese audience will feel, oh, I feel so bad. It's okay. Let them go. I'm serious. That's the strategy of Japan.
Force people to pity them.
It is. It's the same strategy. That's what they do.
Just the most uncomfortable stuff. I just wish I'm okay.
Look, but if you maneuver that, they would call me as a great, powerful manager who knows exactly what he's doing.
It's just like if you miss weight, either don't do the fight or do the fight, but no contest stuff needs to stop.
The reason I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. There's a TV series called "Let's Get Divorced," a Japanese TV drama on Netflix. It's about the dumb politician, and also a very famous actress. And actually, the things I just told you about is actually depicted in that drama. It tells you all about the Japanese, and it's very interesting. But anyway, so
check it out.
Yeah, you got to check it out. Anyway, so Super Rising, it's a month away. It's basically a Bellator.
And Rising still hasn't announced a couple of the fights, right?
No, they're supposed to announce maybe 1 or 2 more fights, whatever. Because they say it's like 5 or 6 fights, whatever, right? So
right now, the main promotional angle seems to be this. They keep saying the flying cage seems to be the
big thing,
focus of for some reason. The fact that they're using a cage and a ring seems to be a big promotional factor.
Right. Yeah. But also for the Japanese point of view, it's really about the Asakura, 2 Asakuras.
And Horiguchi, but Asakura's,
and Horiguchi. And against my client, Makoto. So that's a 3 big fights. And pretty much this show is all about those 3 at this point, right?
Right.
Unless they're adding, Hiramoto fight or something else, There was rumors circulating, and maybe they might add the Pacquiao exhibition fight, but
if they were going to do that, they would have done that. I feel like
exactly.
Why would you tack that on last minute to
right? Exactly. Right. So I mean, is fans now talking about these fights? I mean, in Japan.
I mean, they're talking about it. I mean, when they announced, they had like the press conference in Shibuya. It looked like a lot of people were interested in it. I'm now convinced that no matter what Mikuru does, his fans will be interested.
Sure. Right. And I'm actually okay that he chose Keramov to fight instead of another Japanese fighter, because I think he's smart enough to know that at this point of his career, if he should fight somebody who's very good. So even though he loses, he doesn't lose his credibility.
Yeah, if he loses to him, he's losing to a guy that's one of the best in the division. Exactly. Plus, he's losing to an international fighter, which fans will think the guy's stronger anyway.
Right, exactly. So he knows exactly what he's doing.
Plus, they'll respect him for taking on the challenge of facing
all of that. Right. So he knows he's a good producer of himself. That's very good. And another guy is Kai against Archuleta. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting fight too.
Well, I think Archuleta's management and him have done a really good job of promoting himself in the Japanese market.
Oh, totally.
Especially after that first fight where he just hung around for 2 months, it seemed, and went all over Japan meeting people. And he's kind of turned himself into a little bit of a star, the popular fighter.
A sad thing about it is even him tweeted about that the Bellator on the last broadcast never even mentioned anything about this title fight.
God. Did you see what the boxer tweeted?
What did he say?
Was Spence? What's his name? Spence? Because Showtime's also having a boxing fight the same day.
Yes.
And the guy in that fight literally tweeted, "Nobody gives a fuck about Bellator." On his Twitter. And I was just like, oh my, this is first off, Bellator is not even promoting this. And then the boxer who is leading, who's I think on the same network, is talking trash about it, is not a good look for Bellator.
I've heard that Viacom is not going to invest on Bellator anymore, right? I mean, obviously it's a clear fact that they're up for sale.
Well, Scott Coker's admitted that they're looking for investors, which Viacom doesn't need money. That just tells me that Viacom's told Bellator, if you want a budget, you got to find it somewhere else because we're not going to give it to you.
Right. And I PFL obviously interested in buying it. And even though, Coker may want to do so-called partnership, whatever that is, if the PFL steps in, ain't going to be no Bellator. They're just going to just swap that roster and just make everything PFL. I mean, they're already
partnership.
Anyway. There's no partnership. There's no sense leaving their brand Bellator.
From what I understand, Scott Coker, he doesn't own any stock in Bellator. He just gets paid a salary.
Right.
So he has no say in what happens.
It's the same situation as what happened at the very end of Strikeforce. Right. Remember, he tried to sell it to the Elite instead of not to the UFC, but the parent company stepped in and said, no, we're selling to the UFC. Right?
They won money.
And also, it was the right decision too.
Yeah, it was.
At that point, right? So, I mean, here, if you have a choice between some kind of half-ass partnership and leave some two brands out there, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, let's be realistic, right? If it's PFL, then it's just going to be PFL or somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but I mean,
it says they've never really invested in Bellator anyway, which I actually agree. I mean, so
I mean, their entire business model might have been just to buy it and then try to flip it in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I guess if that's the business model and if that's gonna create more space for our platform of fighters to fight and earn good money, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with like being supported by these big media companies and big hedge fund managers who can assure their existence for like the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's that's what the PFL is, right? And that they all Japanese lost in PFL,
Yeah.
And it seems like nobody really in Japan really watched it, right?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to watch. Is it on DAZN in Japan?
It is DAZN, yes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, DAZN just doesn't have the viewership that ABEMA or Unext has.
Right.
So it's harder for people to watch.
I mean, did you know that Czech's big event, Octagon MMA, that's on DAZN in Japan too?
I did not know that. No.
So you can watch it, but nobody's watching it, basically, right? Because there's no Japanese fighter in it.
Yeah.
So anyway, to go back to Super RIZIN, are you going?
I think I'm just going to watch it on pay-per-view because I mean I could go as media, but I think I would just get a better view on my TV because the media sit in a separate room. But plus the tickets are so expensive that I don't think I would want to go with my wife because it's just crazy expensive.
I'll be on the corner of Makoto actually.
Oh, did you see that they're going to be in Japan?
Yeah, and in fact, I just realized I have to turn in the corner application. I forgot I was supposed to do it. But
did you see that they're? Did you see that they're selling the pay-per-views separately?
Oh, really? You have to buy two?
The Bellator and the RIZIN portions are being sold separately, but if you order by a certain time, you can get a bundle package for a discounted rate on the both of them.
Hey, they're trying to do everything they can to, make
in the US
as high as possible. So
I think in the US, the Bellator portion is on Showtime, and the RIZIN portion is on Fight TV.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
But I've been critical of this card just because I think the ticket prices are insane. Because one of my wife's good friends is the most hardcore RIZIN fan I know. She saves up her money to go sit in really nice seats, and even she texted me and was just like, "I'm going to watch this on pay-per-view. I can't afford to go to this event."
Tickets where if she gets the seats where she normally gets, how much will it be?
Oh, it'd be like I think it'd be like the cheapest tickets are what, Neiman.
Oh.
And then it goes to Saman, Goman. So I think her tickets would be close to $1,000 if she wanted to go. And I would not pay 20,000 yen to sit in the nosebleeds.
Yeah, it's
and watch this.
Exactly. It's not really a normal, a regular people's entertainment for the weekends,
Yeah, it's crazy prices for this. But that being said, I mean, after going to the Yogi show and seeing how many crazy Mikuru fans there are, and how many crazy Vin Hitamoto fans there are, this will probably sell really well. And the Asakura brothers are very popular. Horiguchi is really popular. So I think it'll sell well. The young people will go, but I just think it's too expensive.
Yeah, it's amazing that some people can afford that, right? I mean,
I don't know how they do it because the Japanese economy sucks. And the price, people's salaries, like the average salary hasn't increased in this country in 30 years. I don't know how they can afford these prices.
Yeah, I mean, GDP per person is 35th in the world and stuff. I mean, it's not the most good-looking industrial. I mean, developed. The industrial countries. I mean, some criticize they should not be in G7.
So the average income is not that high.
No,
and
not at all.
I I think it's actually kind of predatory for RIZIN to try to be selling ticket
You
prices
know
at
what?
this.
And I found out, Charlie, I always arranged airline tickets for my
Yeah.
guys, right? My clients. And,
Mhm.
I had to arrange tickets for Naoki, who's coming to Florida in a few
Was he
days.
training at what's that place
Kyoto,
called?
right? And stay there for 3 months because it's perfect. His next flight, we think it's going to be October 1st.
Oh, nice.
So I'll go back at the end of September. But anyway, so when I tried to buy the same exact ticket on Expedia from my side, and it was like $2,400. Okay. But when I asked him to check it from the Japanese side, same flight he bought, it was 1,700.
Yeah, I mean,
So this is like $700 difference.
yeah,
So I'm telling, all right, you buy that, and I'll send the money, kind of stuff. Like it's just much better, right?
right.
To save 700
It's
bucks.
crazy.
So it's crazy. I think it's obviously they're adjusting prices according to the market. So
Right.
yeah. So, but
I just,
considering that, yeah, those ticket prices are very, very expensive.
yeah, incredibly expensive, especially considering like the density of RIZIN events.
Hmm.
It's like they don't do any events for 3 months, and then it's like bam, 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 bam. They just knock out all these events in a row,
Right.
and that's a lot of money. But I don't know. I mean, I think it'll do just fine. I don't think. I'm wondering how many people in Japan actually care about the Bellator portion of this card
Hmm.
because
I
I
think it's
mean,
only they care about the Horiguchi.
yeah, that's all they care about. They
Right.
don't. I mean, AJ McKee put on a good fight over New Year's, but I don't think anybody cares about him really that much over
I mean,
here.
this is like a huge music festival, So we got like Rolling Stones, right, right, like
Yeah,
Bruce Springsteen, whatever. But there are a couple other, warm up bands.
I
Like,
still,
let's do
I
it.
still think the Kana Watanabe fight is wasted. They should have do whatever it takes to get Rinnekai on this
Hmm.
and give the people the fight they want.
Right. But anyway, so related to Bellator, that we're talking about the PFL. So I want to get into that because PFL, I don't know a lot of people has noticed that in Japan, but since they had the show in Georgia, that they have disclosed the fight purse.
I saw that they did disclose it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And
I thought
you know,
I thought considering how young PFL is a promotion, I mean they all seem pretty respectable.
I mean, I think to explain, some fighters are low pay, which is like $3,000, $4,000, whatever. Those are the fighters who probably came from PFL challengers or
Right.
getting those challengers spot. But there's like a fighter like a Braga who came up through that and made it to the playoffs. So this is a big fucking opportunity. A guy like that fought in February, April, right? June.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, that's full. If he gets to fight, that's 5 fights a year. So when you think about the money you can earn, that's pretty not bad. And I think you see the trend where most of the ex UFC fighters, like a Shane Borges or Aspen Ladd, all kinds of stuff, most of them getting 100K
Yeah,
flat.
Aspen Ladd's getting like a really good paycheck in
Yeah,
PFL. I was kind of
right.
surprised.
100K flat, win or lose, meaning they don't. It's not a 50 to show 50 to win,
Right.
right? So it makes everything a little bit better, I think, than in the UFC, obviously.
Right.
So and um I think it's clear since it's open that they just released Yamato's pay, which is $18,000, which is 18,000 to show 18,000 to win.
Right.
Which is clearly higher than the starting, which is 12-12 in the UFC most of the time, 10-10 for
Yeah.
the fighters coming from contender series. So I think they're paying equally, right? Try to be competitive with the UFC.
Right.
Now, it seems even though some Japanese journalists has retweeted this, no RIZIN fans in Japan are really looking at this. It seems like.
Yeah, I just always get the impression that if you don't have like a Japanese fight, I mean, even when Horiguchi was fighting in the UFC,
Mhm.
only hardcore fans were paying attention to that.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's the same with like Mizuki and people like that. Only hardcore fans were paying attention to what she was doing outside of Japan.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just, I mean, Higashi was a champion in Deep Jewels, and they were all good in Japan, but I don't think any of them had like that hardcore kind of like feverish fan base that you would need to get attention.
Yeah, same for Kudo too.
Yeah,
He was a good, solid fighter, title contender in Shuto, but still, it's not like he was a huge name. You
right.
know, but Higashi fought in upper weight class and never, did all right, right? And
Yeah,
Kudo had a one win, and he had the very controversial loss against Brandon, meaning a lot of people thought he won. So he's doing okay. And in terms of pay wise, his pay got open too. His was what 16,000.
Yeah.
So 16,000 to win. The first fight was 13-13, so up by 3-3, which is a little bit better than 2-2.
I think if someone went to PFL and really went on a tear and started winning, I think then PFL would start getting a lot more attention. I mean, it seems almost too obvious to say, but I think the Japanese only care about they only care about a Japanese athlete if they're like doing well or like if they're fighting the best of the best.
I think that the key is that I think some Japanese has to win $1 million in PFL to get noticed.
If they did that, that'd be kind of a game changer.
Yes, that would be so many fighters in terms of a Japanese market, right? In terms of like PFL presence in Japanese market. Then here I want to get to the point where I will make this announcement publicly for the first time that I always thought that Yamato had no business fighting in 155. I had a long talk with his parents and sponsors before Las Vegas fight that he would eventually have to think about doing 145. And if it's even there's a bantamweight division, 135. He walks around at 160, you know. He's shorter than Naoki, shorter than Kazama, and shorter than almost any of my bantamweight clients, you know. But let me tell you this: from the coaches, George Hickman from Bangtao or Jukan from ATD Atlanta, or all these fighters who has sparred with him before, everybody says he's got that skills and that toughness and the punching power that could hang in there with the lightweights. So, in other words, if you go down to featherweight or bantamweight, he'll be forced. There's no doubt about it, is what I felt about these two fights. Even though he lost, Clay is a great fighter who beat Anthony Pettis. Shane's a UFC ranked fighter, right? I mean, they're both no joke. And Yamato was able to hang in there to the end of the third round. And even against the Clay fight, he was scoring knockdowns on those low kicks. I mean, come on, that's very impressive. So, I had talked with him and his daddy, and he has made a decision to go down to 145.
It's very good.
It's number 155 for Yamato.
Does PFL have a 145-pound division?
Yeah, there's featherweight division. It's not bantamweight yet. They may add that next year, so that may be a possibility. But for now, since there's 145 is the lowest division in terms of weight class in PFL, he's going to go that weight class. And I think you can expect him to do a much better, I think.
Yeah. He's probably the best chance for kind of Japanese interest to kind of take off on PFL.
Yes, and look at him. He's only 20.
Right.
And for those who doesn't know, that he's being trained by his father. Again, he lives in Hokkaido, which is the northern part of Japan. So his training environment was anything that good, So he never really had gym.
Right.
Right. And I told you about the story that he always walked in barefoot. That's part of his daddy's training. So walked in the barefoot in the snow, walked in the barefoot into the restaurant, to the shop, to everywhere, kind of stuff. But he's huge, and he has that power, and I guess instead of doing this scientific training, he's been doing this nature training, whatever, in the mountain. He took a lot of hit from both Shane and Clay.
Yeah,
and he came out fine. That's tough.
You know what I mean? Like the mountain training, I'm just thinking of Minowa, like going up Mount Fuji and chasing the
planes. So this is a time when he finally meeting a scientific training and all the experience, the real expert coaches and all kinds of stuff. So, and he went through this first test of see if he can hang in there with the major league guys on the upper weight classes. So I'm telling you, I think he will do very well next year. Perfect. He's going to take off. And I really think, of course I'm biased because I'm his manager, but I really want a lot of people to have high hope on Yamato.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
To find a way to watch DAZN. Is DAZN free or is it like a monthly subscription?
DAZN is pretty expensive. So that's
what I thought.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, DAZN is pretty expensive, even in the States too. So I guess the soccer fans has a deep pocket, maybe, or if you want to buy soccer, it's considered worth it, because to me it's more expensive than HBO Max, which is actually pretty amazing.
Really? Wow. Yeah. That's just because of the soccer then. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be. So at the last topic at the end, I wanted to talk about Mizuki.
Yeah.
She'll be back in UFC September 23rd. We don't know where that's going to be, but it's in America. And we can't talk about the opponents, but I think it's being leaked already.
Yeah, it's on. Well, I won't say it's a name has been put on Topology and ShareDog and several websites.
Okay, so it's already yeah. So yeah, it's the first fight in almost 3 years, right? And she had the big double knee surgeries and it took a long time for rehab and PT. So and she
she's actually had like 3 knee surgeries, hasn't she?
In total 3, I think. Huh? Yeah, knee. Yeah, you know, she always had the knee problem since when she was 6th grade.
Yeah.
And again, this is, I'm not taking anything away from his old coach. I think Yamaguchi is a great coach. Taught both, Mizuki Naoki all these skills by himself. That's pretty damn amazing, right? I mean, but he had a lack of knowledge when it comes to sports medicine. So even though the parents knew that Mizuki was injured in 6th grade, it's probably maybe better to get a surgery back then. The
recovery is way better back then.
Right. The coach felt that not necessary. And the parents had to listen to it. So she always had to fight through all these injuries throughout the careers,
Yeah.
So, I mean, finally she was, and then, of course, she had the surgery. Then she thought it was okay. Then injured again, right? In Invicta. Before the Invicta title fight in the kickboxing, which is stupid to took that fight. Anyway, then injured again in UFC. So, we're really looking at, a girl who went through a lot, but hey, we'll see.
Well, I did an interview with her. I'm going to write an article pretty soon. And she said some interesting stuff. I mean, it sounds like the recovery, she kind of, because of the first one and the second one where she re-injured it, she kind of took her time with this, made sure that it was fully healed.
Right.
I mean, said she's feeling good. She's been sparring for a couple months now.
But, you don't understand. After all, she's been fighting in Invicta since age 18.
Yeah.
28. That's been 10 years now. She's a decade-old major leaguer. You know what I mean? I mean, although she had injuries here and there, but look at the girls that she has faced in all these times.
Well, it's kind of funny. All those girls she fought in Invicta are like big names in
Alexa, Carolina, And just to answer Ichi's question, she's a strawweight. She's not a flyweight. I'm putting her in 115. I still think that's her best weight classes. I'll tell you this funny story. When I
saw her fight in China.
Yeah, exactly, 125. Because that was the fight she had to take to get into the UFC. But it's so funny. I tell you the funny story. I told her, like, what about this opponent, right? And she's like, "What? Am I fighting at 125?" I'm like, "Nah, you're gonna come to 115. So don't even think about that." And I told her this: the day you're gonna fight 125 is the day I'm gonna call bare knuckle. That's where you're gonna fight 125.
Yeah,
then you're gonna go for Paige Van Zandt's position.
Having followed her for a long time, 115 is her weight. Like 125, she doesn't have the frame for it.
No. Yeah. But again, big money at the end of the career when she doesn't really cut weight and to get a big paycheck, and then bare knuckle may be a good way because she's a great striker.
Yeah.
And she did very well in there. I think.
I was joking with a friend because they're talking about. I think someone from the UFC was asking about like wanting more Japan-focused Fight Pass content, and I was joking that they should have like a Mizuki Kaneko buddy cop series because they seem to be traveling Japan all the time. They seem to be traveling the world.
It's great you just mentioned that, but I'm bringing Kaneko MIZUKI back eventually this year, and I want to get them a car so they can drive around to the team. I want to do that with Abema TV, and it's like a film.
I think that'd be hilarious. I think it'd be hilarious because, I mean, Mizuki's like so different than her brother. She's like much more jokey and outgoing than her brother. And Kaneko's also like equally a goofy, kind of funny person.
They're both very funny character. I'm telling you, if they could do a reality show, they would be so funny.
That's what I'm saying. That's the Fight Pass show I want. Just a show that follows them around.
Right.
They just goof around.
Yeah, they are. They're very funny. It's just, anyway, yeah. I want to try to make that happen. So I'm going to try to do that. It's like a Thelma and Louise, Mizuki and Kaneko. And
that's hilarious.
Convertible, and drive to Vegas desert and whatever.
Well, I just remembered, I think Sakakibara said the most he's ever seen a fighter eat was eating with Kaneko.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard that. I want to witness that. I'm actually speaking of that.
That's the reality show I want. That's the reality show that needs to be
Exactly. When I'm in Japan the next time, I've been telling them that I want to go take Kanako out to eat.
Just all you can eat yakiniku, see how many plates she puts down.
Exactly. I want to do that. So that's really anyway. So
speaking before we get up, Mizuki is coming back in September.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any word on when
fight in September, October too? Because she's ready to go.
So Kanako is also September and October.
She's ready to go. I bet we haven't got anything offer yet, but she's ready to go. You know?
Yeah, because when I was actually interviewing Mizuki, Kanako was in the same room and like doing something, and she yelled out that she wants to fight too. So I think she said she's ready.
She's ready. Yeah.
And I've had people asking. I got some messages. I
want them to come back all together at the same time.
I was asking them about that, and they weren't sure. So I'll ask you. Now that they have a UFC contract, does that mean they can get their visa stuff figured out?
Well, if they have a UFC contract, if they have a fight in the US confirmed, yes, they can get visa. So
I'm trying to start training in the US again.
Yes. Then they could get a visa, or at least the last 4 or 5 weeks, they could come and spar with the bigger girls.
Right.
Yeah, because she hasn't fought in 3 years. She needs to get that little sense back, you know?
That's what she was saying. She was saying that she either wants to go to like New York or Las Vegas, where there's a bunch of girls she can roll with.
Exactly, right. And Jessica De La Boni at the Extreme Couture, so as Misha Tate, and all kinds of stuff. And I have to talk to Eric about that. You know, I mean, and Ray, and see what's going on in New York. But I got to get a visa first.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that's the first. So
it sounds like you have a busy schedule ahead of you.
Always. I'm always in chaos in terms of schedule. I can never make up my decision because anything could happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, right. But anyway, so I guess we talk again in 2 weeks again.
Let's do it.
Okay.
We can do a more in-depth Super Rising preview then, because it'll be coming up.
Let's do that. Yeah, and by then I get more news about maybe Kanako or more other fighters, Yusaku or Kazama. So
perfect.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. See you.
See you.
Yep. Bye.